Okay, we're going to talk about what not to say when an atheist asks you as a Christian apologist about biblical violence or divinely commanded violence in the Bible. And our example about what not to say is going to come from a clip from a Frank Turek video where he's answering, I guess it's an atheist or skeptic's question at a public university. I believe that's the setting. It's a public university. So let's go to the clip.
An atheist says that I don't believe in the God of the Bible because I think the God of the Bible is immoral. My first statement is going to be, what do you mean by immoral? Because you don't have a standard by which to judge the God of the Bible. No objective standard. It's just your subjective opinion. You just don't like the God of the Bible. But that's not a moral position. That's just your own subjective opinion. So atheists don't have a standard by which they can judge the God of the Bible or anybody else.
Okay, let's go through it. Point one, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And when somebody asks you a question, telling them, well, you don't even have a right to ask that question is just obnoxious. We should always be looking for ways to make people want to agree with us. And when you have as your opening line, you can't even ask that question, you're not going to make somebody want to listen to you. You're going to just put up a wall between you and them, and they're going to be far less likely to agree to anything else you have to say. So don't be obnoxious. Don't take that adversarial, confrontive approach in your first response to the person. So that's the first point. Second point is that Turek's claim is flatly false. It's simply not true that atheists or only have as one option for morality some sort of radical subjectivism or anti-realism. This is just, again, it's patently false, and it's so frustrating that Christian apologists, particularly at this popular level like Turek, continue to repeat a falsehood. It's endlessly ironic that they repeat falsehoods about the very people they purport to want to reach, and they do so in the name of truth. It's just really frustrating. If you want a simple example of how atheists can accept an objective perspective on morality, accept objective moral values and obligations, watch the debate between Shelley Kagan and William Lane Craig. Shelley Kagan is an atheist philosopher, ethicist. William Lane Craig, one of probably the Christian world's leading apologist and debater, and they debated objective moral values and atheism. And I think Shelley Kagan definitely got the best of William Lane Craig in that debate. I think and I should just say this, add this, that I believe from what I've seen that most atheist philosophers, professional philosophers who are ethicists, are moral objectivists. So yeah, they are defending and articulating atheistic positions on morality, and they accept objective moral values and obligations. Another good example, look at the work of Eric Wielenberg. Eric Wielenberg is a moral Platonist and an atheist, accepts objective moral values and obligations as an atheist. So what what Turek is saying here is just false. I think what often happens when people like Turek do this is that they conflate atheism and naturalism. Naturalism, while it has many different definitions, the basic picture is that all facts or all objective facts are natural, or all objective facts can be explained in a hypothetically completed natural science. And it's very difficult to conceive how you could have something like objective moral values and obligations, which seem to have a normative quality to them, in a world in which all objective facts are descriptive rather than normative, or described through science rather than the unique nature of moral discourse. And fine, naturalism may have a specific difficulty in explaining objective moral values and obligations, but atheism is not the same thing as naturalism, right? They're just different things. So beware of that. And many leading atheists reject naturalism. So a great example, Thomas Nagel. Another example, Ronald Dworkin, passed away about a decade ago, but a great atheist philosopher. Or Eric Wielenberg, who I mentioned earlier. So the second point Turek uses here, the argument is just a bad one. The third point I want to make is that you can know something or have rational belief in something without having a theory to explain how it is true. This is certainly the case for Christians. Christians appeal to this all the time, right? They say, well, I accept the doctrine of the Trinity. God is 3 in 1. even though there are powerful objections to the doctrine of the Trinity. And I'm not sure that there is a completely satisfactory, logical, and orthodox biblical account of what the doctrine of the Trinity is. Check out Dale Tuggy's channel, Trinities, his YouTube podcast and channel. Endless discussion of the doctrine of the Trinity. Tuggy himself does not accept the doctrine of the Trinity, and he's been a very effective voice in critiquing theories of the Trinity. But I would want to say, even if you don't have a satisfactory theory of the doctrine of the Trinity, you can still accept the doctrine of the Trinity. Another example, you may, in terms of mind-brain interaction, you may not be satisfied that we have a satisfactory explanation for how mental events can cause physical events in the world. Nonetheless, you may still believe, as I certainly do, that mental events do cause physical events in the world. And by the same token, an atheist may not have a completely satisfactory explanation for how there are objective moral values and obligations in the world, and yet they may accept that there are objective moral obligations and values in the world. And you telling them you don't have a right to do that is not a thing I think you should be doing, unless you also want to say, I don't have a right to accept the doctrine of the Trinity or the incarnation or the mind-brain interaction unless I have satisfactory theories for all of those things as well. This brings me to the fourth and final point. The really fundamental issue here from the atheist perspective, I would say, is this. There are many different religions in the world and many different religious texts in the world. And many of those religions and those religious texts do not describe the deity at the heart of the religion or the religious text as commanding and or commending apparent moral atrocities. So the fact that the Judeo-Christian tradition and the Bible depict God as commanding and commending apparent moral atrocities such as genocide provides a prima facie objection to the Judeo-Christian tradition and to the Bible that you do not have in many of these other religions. And so whatever the atheist believes here is just not relevant. What is relevant is for you as the Christian to explain how and why this person should still consider the Judeo-Christian tradition to be a serious candidate for divine revelation, given that it appears to attribute moral atrocities to the God at the heart of its revelation. And that is the problem that you have to explain. So please do not use Turek's talking point. It's an asinine and an offensive, and I think an obnoxious talking point. And yes, again, do not use it.